Hello, welcome back to another video. It is 8:17 a.m. on Sunday morning here in the UK. We've got us two reprobates. We're back on. Myself and Jason Murphy. We are reacting to Jake Paul versus Platinum Mike Perry. Happened a couple of hours ago. How are we, Jason? You well?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Good, yeah, really well, thanks. So, getting into the nitty gritty of it. Let's be honest. We knew it was coming. We knew what was going to happen. Mike Perry doing Mike Perry things was very tough, but he walked in straight lines. He sat and fed into what Jake Paul wanted to do all night. I've been back and forth with a few people this week. I said that Mike Perry was happy to be there. He fed into everything Jake Paul did all week. And I'm not taking away from Mike Perry. I followed his whole career in the UFC. I've watched his BKFC fights. I love Mike Perry. He is what he is ultimately. But yeah, Jake Paul, he's got everyone on strings, hasn't
he? Yeah, I'm not surprised that the fight went the way it went. But if I'm honest, I expected a lot more from Mike Perry. I would never throw the words, fix and rigged. But going back to what you said, Mike Perry looked like he looked like a fan that had won a competition to do a 10-round sparring match, and his ultimate end goal was to see it through to the end and not try hurt Jake Paul. It didn't look like he'd done a day's boxing training in his life. He was just plodding forward, eating jabs, swinging an overhand right. I'd said that I expected Jake Paul to win. I expected him to win on points. I thought that his size would be the only issue that Perry would have. I thought that he'd get in him. I thought he'd work his way inside. He'd try his dirty boxing. He'd get in the clinch. And I just thought that the 20-odd pounds difference, whatever it was, would ultimately pay dividends for Jake Paul. I thought he'd tire Mike Perry out and then he'd just sort of be a punching bag for the last couple of rounds. But it was that from round one.
Yeah,
It
was interesting. He dropped him in the first. It was more of a flash knockdown, the one in the first. The second was a big overhand right that dropped him, and then he finished him in the sixth, with a bit of a barrage. Like, to be honest, it was a solid finish from Jake Paul. Yeah. But, he looked gassed after a couple of rounds, and it makes me sort of wonder because, Nate Diaz went, I think it was 10 that they fought over rather than the 8 in this one. And, he dropped Nate and hurt him on one occasion, but, Nate was fairly comfortable in that, and he definitely had moments. For me, if Nate and Mike Perry were fighting in bare knuckle, I'd have that as a 50-50 fight. So, what just begs the question, really, what was the game plan for Mike Perry? It didn't seem.
I don't think he had one.
I kind of thought, I expected him to get hit as often as he did. That part didn't surprise me, but he offered nothing offensively at all.
No, he did. It's like you said. It was like he turned up just to get paid. He was happy to be there. He'd bought into the, team prime and all that nonsense. And it was like the remit is go out there, have some fun, make it exciting for the fans. You don't knock Jake out. I'm not saying that's what he did. I'm saying it doesn't help that kind of narrative. Him plodding forward aimlessly with his hands down by his waist. If you're fighting MMA, your hands need to be near your waist to stop the kicks and to defend takedowns. That wasn't an issue last night. So just marching forward with nothing here, expecting to not get smacked in the head, is just lunacy for me. He was never going to win from round one if those type of tactics. I'm not saying that I could have done any better because I couldn't. I don't fight. But I know enough about boxing to know that if you're not going to protect yourself up here, you're going to get smacked in the face, and he was never going to win. Walking forward aimlessly, just following him. I don't know what he were expecting. I mean, I know he kept winging that overhand right from his hips, and it could have caught him. But you could see from the first face-off that size was going to be an issue. Yeah. So the only way Mike Perry was going to win that fight was by outboxing him and following him without cutting the corners off. He's not outboxing him. That's just walking into everything he's expecting. Jake Paul didn't look like he was in trouble or worried at any point last night. And that for me, it's concerning because Mike Perry's an absolute savage. He's a nightmare for. I mean, he outboxed MVP for goodness sake. MVP is one of the elite strikers ultimately in the world at any discipline. He's a karate points fighter. You know, he can find gaps where nobody can. And Mike Perry put it on him, and he didn't just smother him and blast him out of there. He boxed, you know, he sort of used his feet, he got in, found angles. Where were any of that last night? I was just gutted. I was absolutely gutted that Mike Perry just didn't. It seems like the every fight he goes with sort of an MMA fighter, the performances get worse from the MMA fighter when you're expecting.
Yeah.
Every time I'm thinking, right, we've got a fight now, and it's a worse performance from the MMA side that feeds into it's fixed. It's a pantomime narrative. Again, I'm not saying that, but it just doesn't help me perform.
Doesn't help the speculation at all.
If Mike Perry wakes up this morning and isn't disappointed in himself, then he just turned up for a paycheck. I'd want to hear him this morning say, look, you know, I got stunned in the first. I couldn't get my range. I couldn't, you know, there's a lot more complex than I thought. It was more difficult when I was in there. But I'm just super disappointed.
Yeah. I completely agree with absolutely everything you said there. You know, there's people, unfortunately, in the 50th row in the Amalie Arena that could have seen those overhand rights coming from Mike Perry last night. That's the be all and end all of it. But it begs the question, mate, forget about Mike Perry for 1 second. You know, what's next for Jake Paul? Obviously, he's fighting Mike Tyson in November. No interest in that fight at all. I hope it doesn't happen.
Listen, he's got a fight, right? He's got to now fight a top 20 world level cruiserweight. Stop fighting 40, 50, 60-year-old men, MMA fighters.
Out of their prime, MMA fighters. And
just boxer in his prime, not Tommy Fury, that's a career light heavyweight, that's basic anyway. No disrespect to him, but he's not anywhere near his brother's level. He's not even near Huey's level. Tommy Fury is an average boxer that would have got nowhere given he had a Smith as a certain.
The issue I have with it, and you know, I don't want to be labelled a hater because I do respect Jake Paul. He gets in there and he fights at the end of the day. So I'm not going to disrespect anybody that does that. But my issue is you're parading yourself off as a future world champion, and you're going to fight and beat Canelo Alvarez and whatever it may be. But and then and you know, I'm not saying fight Canelo tomorrow because him and everyone else knows how that goes. But like you say, top 20, top 30. You know, I know it's not as going to do his big pay-per-views and understand it's a business, so I guess I get that kind of side of it. But you know, for me, he has to, you know, to get real hardcore boxing fans on side, which no matter what he says, he cares about that opinion because he wants to be known as a boxer. You know, he needs to fight somebody that, you know, is going to get boxing fans' attention to be like, okay, you know what, fair enough, and then nobody's going to give him that you know, stick anymore.
I always thought that, right? But I think seeing the way it's going for him and seeing the way that the fans, not necessarily boxing fans, but the sort of I can't believe I'm saying this now, but there is actually a crossover fan, isn't there? There's people that only watch.
There is.
We were talking off camera. I've got an 11-year-old daughter that's been brought up in a house of boxing. It's all she's ever known, boxing and MMA. She's not interested. But Jake Paul comes on and I can hear her watching face-offs, press conferences, because it's the prime guy, you know, the prime guy's brother, or you know, their personalities.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
I'm thinking now, is he that bothered? I mean, he says he is, and he wants to go down as a great and blah blah blah. But if he's filling out arenas and he's getting 20, 30, 40 million for fighting anybody, don't matter who we fight. One of us could be in the opposing corner. It will sell a decent amount of pay-per-views, not enough to warrant somebody like Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn getting involved. The pay-per-views don't make that type of money. But in terms of promotions that he has, a lot of it's down to sponsorship or YouTube views, because the kids will pay.
People are paying to see him lose, aren't they? That's
the old neighbour. Can't believe I'm putting him in the same sentence. But
but it's
a lot of people when he changed from Pretty Boy to Money. It sort of started with Ricky Hatton when he wore the Man United shirt in Manchester, and he started giving it the bigger. 50% of the people that bought the pay-per-views wanted to see him get chinned.
Of course.
You know, and the other half were like me that watched him for you know, for his skill set. I think Jake Paul now has solidified himself in that crossover space, and it's going to go one or two ways. He either continues with the pantomime fights and just goes off into the sunset, and he may get a Saudi fight with Canelo, because Turk knows a good business venture when he sees one and puts it on anyway.
I think Turkey doesn't like him. He was commenting on the fight,
so.
saying it's a joke and all this, and then somebody pulled him up saying, well, you paid Ngannou 30 million, and he goes, I didn't pay Ngannou 30 million, and he goes, Ngannou is actually a real fighter. So I don't think Turkey's massively on board with it.
That'll do for me then. I didn't know
that. Just to finish up, I guess, you know, he's called out Alex Pereira in the ring.
They got on FaceTime, did you see?
Yeah, and do you know what though? That's another thing I have a problem with. And again, I don't want to come across as a hater, but he knows that Dana White's not going to let Alex Pereira fight him.
Absolutely not.
But it's a great call out again for the marketing strategy, and it looks like his. And to be honest with you, you know, let's be honest. You know, him against Alex Pereira, you know, it's Pereira would stop him in a few rounds. He would.
I think he'd stop him in less. I think Pereira's the type of guy that would not buy into it all, and he'd just smash him to pieces.
You can't trash talk Alex Pereira.
It's never going to happen. For me, I think he needs to fight someone like Idris Virgo, Vidal Riley, somebody that's European.
Oh, Vidal Riley would box his ears off, wouldn't he?
Smash his head in. But I think they've had a little bit of back and forth before.
But you know what? If he got in there with Vidal and Vidal beat him, knocked him out, 12-0'd him, whatever it may be, I'll be like, you know what? Fair enough. Yeah, he went in there with a legit guy.
If he boxed a legit guy and put up a reasonable performance, I think that would do more for his career than knocking out these. In terms of real boxing, people would have a little bit more respect for him.
Yeah.
I know he says he's bothered. Ultimately, I don't think he gives a shit whether
no. And his people aren't going to want that either, because they're on the money train, and it is what it is. But yeah, you know, for me, mate, you know, hopefully the Tyson fight doesn't happen, but
I don't want it to happen. No. I really don't. Good luck to anybody that's out there making money, but for me, it hasn't got a place for me. I just don't like it. I've watched it. I have to watch it. I'll watch two tramps fight over a bag of chips. You know, I'll watch any fight. But ultimately, I don't like it, and you know, the faster it goes away for me, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that'll do it. Thanks again, Jason Murphy, for coming on. That's the reaction to Jake Paul versus Mike Perry last night, and we'll catch you next time, guys.
See you later.